Good morning, and welcome to this edition of Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Today, joining us from Land, Sea, and Sky is Marcie Hysinger to discuss a little bit about optics. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cup Chat with Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. Maureen and I are excited to have a special guest, Marcie Hysinger from Land, Sea, and Sky today to talk to us about optics. So hi, Marcie, and thank you for joining us. You want to kind of give us a little bit of your background and what y'all do there at Land, Sea, and Sky?
Good morning. I work at a store in Houston called Land, Sea, and Sky that's been around for 80 years, since 1940, and we specialize in optics sales and repair. And what that means is people with broken microscopes, telescopes, binoculars, that sort of thing from all over the US send them into our shop for service and repair. And then we also sell some things. And so I'm here today because we're really involved in the birding community, and binoculars are really my number one favorite thing that we sell at the shop. So I'm happy to share any information that I can to help people get the right gear for them.
Well, that's wonderful. And so we're going to kind of go through some questions that we typically get, or some things that I maybe want to know, because I've done some looking around my house. It's obvious that all binoculars are not quite created equal. I mean, look at these. They look like the cartoon binoculars that you would like go on a safari for. Oh, the bottoms twist too. Oh my gosh, guys, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, it looks like that comes off. Anyways,
yeah.
I think they may be ancient. They may need to come to the repair shop, Miss Marcie. But let's first off talk about something that I think most people kind of question as they get started. What do the numbers mean? 8 by 32? What does that even tell us as we go binocular shopping?
That is the right first question to ask. So the binocular that I'm holding is a Zeiss binocular, and you'll maybe see here on the back it says 8 by 42. That first number, 8x, is the magnification. As I'm looking at that bird will appear 8 times closer than it will with my naked eye. So that's important. And most common for birding in nature is an 8 power, but a 10 power is good too. There's no bad binocular, but these are kind of the ideal range. The second number, the 42, is the diameter of this objective lens. I'm going to pick up a different color. That black's not showing up very well in the sunlight. Here's a green pair that might do better. The second number is in millimeters, the diameter of this objective lens in millimeters. So 8 by 42 means this has a 42 millimeter diameter. Most birders we see in the US use an 8 by 42 binocular. And that's because it is enough magnification to get on most birds and be able to identify them. And that 42 millimeter objective is awesome because it lets in a lot of light. So in general, these objectives are important because the bigger that objective is, the more light and color come down this dark barrel to your eye. The more light and color come down the barrel to your eye, the better your brain can make out detail. And so when you're trying to figure out what kind of yellow warbler that is, that can be just, exceedingly important to you. The bad news is the bigger that objective lens gets, the bigger the whole binocular gets and the heavier. And so there's a bit of a trade-off regarding light coming down that barrel and size. So as you'll notice, this is an 8 by 42 binocular, and this little bitty guy is an 8 by 32 binocular. So you can see what a tremendous difference there is, particularly if you're, carrying this out in the field for a long ways. You might be willing to give up a little bit of light for size and weight. And I'm sorry, my light, speaking of light, my light's going all over the place. I've not done anything in this room. There we go.
Well, with the time change.
This time of morning, I know it's really messing me up here. So yeah. Sorry about that. We'll try to make that better.
So
if that gets too wonky, just let me know.
And if I can ask a question next. So Marcie, you talked a bit about the trade-off with that second number, but with the first number, if I can see the bird bigger, why wouldn't I want, a 12 by 42? Why don't I want that? What's the trade-off with that first number?
Yes, that's a good question too. So there's a few things that happen as you go up in magnification. The first thing is it's kind of awesome, right? Because now I'm seeing that bird not 8 times closer, but 10 times closer, or even 12 times closer. One of the most noticeable trade-offs, however, is that usually those lenses are bigger and heavier, and so the binocular gets a little heavier. But most importantly, just like you're magnifying the view of the bird or ship or whatever it is that you're using your binoculars for, you're also going to magnify any tremor or shake that you might have, any wind conditions that are happening, or if you're standing on an unstable surface like a deck, any of that vibration is going to be magnified as well. And what happens is it makes it really difficult to achieve a good crisp focus if the binocular isn't really still. And so for that reason, for somebody that has a wee bit of tremor in themselves, or we know they're going to be using it on an unstable environment, we actually recommend even going down in magnification to something like a 6 or 7x. It will really help them be able to achieve focus and not notice as much any tremble or tremor. Another thing that is worth pointing out is the field of view is different on every binocular. So it depends on not just those numbers, the magnification, the diameter of the objective, but also how close these lenses are put together. And so some binoculars naturally have quite a narrow point of view or field of view. And while those are, and a lot of pocket binoculars have a very small field of view. Well, that's not a big deal if you're in Paris looking at architecture, right? That architecture is not going anywhere. You can kind of afford that time to look around and find it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And even in a stadium binocular, if you're looking at, you know, Lady Gaga, you probably can pretty well guess where she's going to be and follow her around. But nature viewing is really different, and it's much more difficult to anticipate what direction you'll need to go. And it's funny, the trees, like in your background, can be really deceptive, right? Because all the leaves kind of look the same when you're in a hurry trying to get your glass on a bird. So field of view can be really important. So the bigger field of view for a beginner birder or somebody that doesn't use their binoculars a lot can be a huge advantage to having a successful trip versus a really frustrating time with a binocular. So in general, an 8x42 is chosen because it's fairly lightweight, so it's pretty easy to carry around. The field of view is big enough that you're likely to be able to get the binoculars on whatever it is you're trying to see out in the distance. And, you know, in general, it's just a really good all-around nature binocular.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially since so much of our audience is beginner birders. For most of the youth binoculars that we have when we do our youth camps are either 6 or 7s, because again, kids tend to have really good vision. So it's less an issue of making it bigger for them and more an issue of making sure that we keep their field of view wide and adjust for the fact that they're maybe not the most stable in the world. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to consider. I personally use a 10x42 because my vision is bad and my hands are, yeah, because I'm super blind, but my hands are also very steady, and I've had enough practice as far as finding things that it's not a big deal. So I think those are just all important things for our listeners to consider what will be best for them. So thank you, Marcie. That was a fantastic explanation.
Now let's poke a little more fun at Maureen, Miss Marcie.
Uh-oh.
Because Maureen is, I love you, but you do wear some very thick glasses, my love, and are blinder than a bat, which bats actually see very well. So this, you know, you're pretty blind. What about people who do have eyesight problems? Are there, if they come into this, you know, if they come to y'all, are there binoculars that are really can be created or that work for people who have eyesight problems? Probably not just Maureen, who's blind, but who've had surgery on their eyes or anything like that, Marcie.
Or if you're wearing glasses versus not. Yeah.
Oh yes, we've got to talk about the little cups.
And Marcie's wearing glasses, so that's perfect. Yeah.
I'm on it. And I know the light's weird. I'm really sorry. I've only done this at noon and after, so this 7:30 lighting is really getting me. So there's a few important things to know about your eyes and a pair of binoculars. And it's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to shop online for binoculars, and it can be done. You just have to know the right specifications to look for. The first thing that we haven't addressed yet is interpupillary distance, how close or far set your eyes are. And that is adjusted just because there's a center hinge in binoculars. And so it can make those eyes closer together or further apart. When you're talking about the youth birding program, the great thing about a 6-power, like a Kowa 6x30 binocular, is that they can get super close interpupillary distance. So they're great for all ages. You know, you can give them to the youngest member of your family or the eldest. And not only will they not have as much problem with that potential shaking, but also the interpupillary distance is good on those little low magnification binoculars. And so they can be good for all ages. So that's the first thing. If you have really far set or close set eyes, the range of interpupillary distance is going to be of importance to you. The second thing you mentioned is the eye cups. And in this pair of binoculars, and can you see them okay?
Yes.
They roll up and down. And so I just turn them clockwise for down, counterclockwise for up. If you're like me and put your glasses on top of your head before you use your binoculars, you want those up. And then you can put them right against your eyes. But look at all the distance that's taken up by if I'm wearing my glasses. So it would push the binocular out quite a bit. That's an easy way to remember that with glasses, you're better off putting the glasses on and then putting them down, so the eye cup's down for glasses and right up against your eyes. And all you're doing is taking up that bit of distance, but it'll be really critical as you're trying to achieve the best focus. Also, if you see those little dark crescents on the edges of your field of view, you haven't got it quite right yet. So keep messing around with those eye cups and make sure that you have those hinges set exactly right for your eyes. And it's just a trial and error issue, but it'll really make your experience out in the field much better.
That's so funny you said that. We had a lady at our Learn to Bird program last weekend who was having trouble getting birds in her binoculars, and it was the simplest thing of once we put her eye cups down for her glasses.
Yes,
it made a huge difference in her ability to find those birds and find them quickly before they flew off, because that's the most frustrating thing about birding is they don't always sit right where you want them to. So
it can be really challenging. Hey, Emily, can you hold up both of your pair of binoculars?
Oh, yes.
So the other thing people want to know is, why do these binoculars look so different and which one's better? And the answer is,
these are my safari binoculars.
Yes, those safari binoculars you have there, that's called a Poro prism design. And it's an older design, and some people prefer it and some people don't. All it means is that that light is going through some prisms before it gets to your eyes. But the view can actually be quite stunning. So there's not a huge difference between that, the Poro prism binocular, and your other one like this, which is straight through. This is called a roof prism design. So obviously the light's just going right down the barrel to your eye. So, not a huge difference. It's just a preference issue. The Poro prism designs in general tend to be a little bit cheaper because they've just been being produced much longer. This right now, the roof prism design, seems to be the most popular design for nature and birding, and even some other hobbies. And it's great. Can I just jump in with one more topic?
Yes, keep going, Marcie. We're all ears. There's
this huge price gulf between binoculars, right? You can go to a sporting goods store and pick up a pair of binoculars for under $100, or you can pay several $1,000s for your binoculars. So we often have folks that are not familiar with hobbies like this say, who in their right mind would pay that kind of money for a pair of binoculars? And that's a valid question. But the answer is, as you age in particular, and eyesight becomes not quite as sharp, the quality of your binoculars becomes more important to you. But even for children, we really want them to have a pretty decent pair of first binoculars, because otherwise they're magnifying the image, but they might not actually be seeing it any better. In fact, the image might be significantly worse through the binoculars than just with their naked eye. What you're paying for as you go up in the quality. Man, this light is so bad. I'm just going to try one more time to move this around.
Mine's
Sorry. You're
too,
going to take a walk around my house with me.
I'm going to adjust myself too while we're.
Oh, so much better. Sorry about that, guys.
We just get a full tour.
Yeah, you're going to get, you can see the coffee pot and the whole thing. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. This is a real rookie mistake here. So what you're paying for with a more expensive pair of binoculars is the glass and the coatings on the glass. So the case, the focus mechanism, all of that is really going to be virtually the same in a pair of binoculars that cost $2,000 and in a pair of binoculars that cost $50. What you're paying for is the coatings on the glass. And I'm going to just set you down here. Oftentimes, as you're looking at a pair of binoculars, you can see a bit of a sheen on them, and it can look purple or green. And that sheen is coatings. And what those coatings are doing is helping light and color traverse that dark barrel through to your eye, as we discussed before. And in the newer and more expensive binoculars, but even in some of the cheaper new binoculars, both sides of every piece of glass through the binoculars have coatings on them to that end. And so oftentimes they'll say HD, high definition, or ED, which stands for extra low dispersion glass. And that just means that color and light is going to travel better. And the more money they spend on grinding that glass to be just perfect, and the more money they spend on coating that glass, the more expensive the binocular gets. But the quality of the view is really improved. Having said that, that technology has been around now for quite some time. So you're seeing even some fairly inexpensive binoculars come in with some really good HD coatings. So really there's a great binocular, at every price point. Another thing I will mention just before.
My big ones have no coating, I don't think.
Right. Those older models oftentimes.
I'm not sure that there's any coating out, and I had to do a little spit shine while we were talking to make an evaluation.
The proper way to clean binoculars. I feel like you might have been making her cringe while you were.
It's not with the bottom of my shirt tail, because I thought that's how you did it.
Emily, that was such a nice segue into binocular maintenance, right? Well done. So Maureen, Emily, you should not use your shirt tail to clean your binoculars, although I know it's tempting. So when you're cleaning any of the exterior lenses of your binoculars, you can use, well, the first thing you want to do is blow them off. And really, it's okay to do it the old-fashioned way. Or you can use one of those little air blowers that you use with your hand, right? It's just a little hand pump air blower. What you want to be really careful with is canned air. The propellant in the canned air comes out at such a temperature and with some chemicals that it can actually really ruin the coatings on your glass. So we don't ever recommend canned air, but if you can't resist, we want you to do it from a really good distance. So, back up a good 10, 12 inches. And then do it. But really just the old fashioned or hand air first. The reason we do that is with them, keeping in mind that there's coatings on here and we don't want to scratch the coatings. Just like my glasses, I don't want to, grind anything into those, but we'll leave them scratched and, mess up my view from then on. Once they've been blown, then you can clean them pretty much with anything that's safe for your eyeglasses. So even stores like Walmart and Kroger in the pharmacy section sell Zeiss lens cleaning wipes that are disposable for your eyeglasses. And those are safe for the coatings and those are safe for your binoculars as well. And so we just use that and dab and lift and dab and lift. So you're just hitting one little spot at a time with a fresh piece of the cloth. The reason we do that is because if we did miss a piece of debris on there, we're not just grinding it into the whole glass, right? We're just going to be really careful and kind of dab and release. But that is just a really quick and easy way to clean your binoculars. Mine are quite dirty on the eye cups because we leave these in our house sitting like this on a table. So all of that dust collects there. So we do clean ours often. You really should try to avoid cleaning them if possible, again, just to extend the life of the coatings on that glass. One other item I'll say not to ever do is Windex. We don't ever want Windex on the binocular. Windex has ammonia in it. Ammonia will etch the coating.
Interesting. So what about if my binoculars are like my old school ones here? They've been around many years, obviously very dirty. Is it recommended, send them to the shop, let them do like a really good clean on them after every 20 years or something, or just the little eye wipes and blow-offs and we'll be good?
Listen, if you really want to avoid your binoculars going in to any of the shops, us, the manufacturers, whatever, you want to avoid it if you can. There's really, what we're going to do is very similar to the process that I just described. We do have a few little special tricks, which I'll share with you. We buy Q-tips that are 100% cotton on the edge, and that's how we get into the fine nooks and crannies. We use optic safe cleaner across the whole binocular. That way we can't make any mistakes. And so if you need to get into those nooks and crannies, that 100% cotton Q-tip is a good way to do that, and will be safe on the lenses as well. Never spray anything onto the lens. We really like those ice cleaning wipes for our customers because it takes away the temptation to spray something directly on the lens. But the only reason really your binocular should have to come into the shop is either A, you can't quite get it to focus anymore. So perhaps there's a problem with a focusing mechanism, which can be repaired, no problem. Or sometimes if you bang them against the edge of a boat or something, they'll be knocked out of alignment. That can be fixed. It's not cheap. So we can do it. If your binocular is still under warranty, we'll just send it to the manufacturer. If we break into that binocular, we'll void your warranty, and we never want to do that. So if you have something like a Nikon, a Swarovski, we will send that away, and not even do that ourselves in the shop, just to keep your warranty whole. So yeah, it's best just to do that very careful self-care if you can, and then send them into us if not. One other thing I'll mention that may have changed in between those two pair of binoculars that you have there is waterproofing.
Heaven
right?
forbid.
When you bought that Poro Prism binocular,
I don't think I'm old enough to have bought these.
when you inherited that Poro Prism
It looked before my time. BE, before Emily.
BE binocular, before Emily. When that one was produced, it may or may not have been fully waterproof and fog-proof, but most binoculars now are fully waterproof and fog-proof. Having said that, that means something different to every manufacturer. They all have their own standards. Really, your binoculars, if you're kayaking and they fall into the river, you should be able to fish them out. You can just pour distilled water over them, and usually they're good to go. However, if there's going to be a failure, it's usually at the very edge of the lens, and you'll see that water has just seeped in the tiniest bit. Here in the Houston area, we've had that problem with all the people that have flooded over the years and these various hurricanes that have come through. So we've seen some binoculars in dreadful shape, but they can be fixed. So fish them out, don't throw them away. If the water seeps into that, just into the very edge, you'll see it. It's not like your cell phone. We don't want you to put it in rice or dry it out. We want to see exactly where that water got in, if possible. So what we would encourage you to do is seal it up in a Ziploc bag and just send it in to us. We can take these lenses off, clean it, realign the binocular, seal it up, and they can be fixed. It's an expensive process, so it's not worth doing for every binocular, but it's worth a phone call to see. And if it's your favorite binocular to take in the field, sometimes just the sentimental value attached to it makes it worth a phone call to us to see if it can be fixed. But usually the binoculars are fully waterproof, and you should be able to drop them in the drink and still fish them out and continue to use them, and they should be just fine.
But you don't advise us going underwater binocularing.
Nope, I don't. Nope. It's one thing to drop them in and fish them right back out again. It's another thing to really submerge them. The pressure of the water can be a real problem.
That's like the phone at the phone stores, and I always have to go off on these little tangents, but like at the phone stores, they want to prove that the case is waterproof, and so they'll put the case in a bucket of water so you can see that it's waterproof. And I'm like, who does that? No one actually takes their phone in the swimming pool. And I think that's all fake anyways. Sorry, AT&T or whoever your phone company is who does that, but it's unrealistic. But anyways, as we move, we kind of hit binoculars fairly well.
I have a question.
Oh, of course you. And speaking of questions, if you are watching us live and you have questions, please shoot us via the comments. Marcie can answer those while we're live here online. So new feature today.
Okay, actually, I think I have two questions. So the first is, what if you've been cleaning your binocular, after your description of cleaning binoculars, somebody's like, oh no, I've been doing mine wrong, and I realized that maybe I've scratched my coatings. Is that something that y'all can repair? Like if you realize that your coatings have been scratched?
So that one's really tricky because it would require that lens be replaced. So it would not be an inexpensive thing to do.
So it is
can
actually
be done,
important.
and it can be done by us, and it can be done by manufacturers. This binocular is a Swarovski binocular. They make spotting scopes as well. We recently had a spotting scope come in where the objective had been cracked, and they did replace that. It wasn't hugely expensive relative to the cost of the gear, but it was not free. So it can be done, but it would require replacement of that piece of glass that has scratches on it.
So that's interesting. That is, I think sometimes you think about cleaning as just, maybe it's not the first thought that comes to your mind. And because I wear glasses a lot, I have those 100-box, wipes everywhere. And so I knew to use those on it. But, I think sometimes if you're out in the field and you go, oh, it's dirty, I'll just use this bandana or whatever. But it really is important to clean them the right way because it can be the most expensive thing to fix from what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly
the
right.
other question I have is, so again, talking about how blind I am. When I'm wearing my glasses or my contacts, I see equally out of both eyes. But Marcie, I think a lot of people don't realize that some binoculars have a feature if your eyes don't see the same way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Maureen. That's called the diopter focus. And every binocular has the ability to focus in general with the middle barrel focus knob. And then it also has the, usually has the feature to adjust the diopter focus, which corrects between the vision in both eyes. So like you, I always leave mine set at a central position, and that's usually marked. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm going to try. In this, so usually, oftentimes the diopter focus is on the right barrel. It can also be in the center. Oh yeah, there's
You can see it on
there's Emily's diopter focus. On this one, it's in the center, and you pull it up and then twist and then push it back down, and now the actual focus knob works. The procedure for that is get something kind of in a mid distance. You can keep both eyes open, but really concentrating on that left barrel, you want to be sure that left barrel is in sharp focus, just like you would normally using that central focus knob. Then again, you can keep both eyes open, but really concentrating on the right barrel, you want to change that diopter focus and just make very minute adjustments until your right eye is also seeing that same object just in crystal clear focus. And then set it and forget it. Now, most of the binoculars have little notch marks with pluses or minuses or numbers. And that's because if I'm sharing my binoculars with Emily and my prescription's slightly different than hers, I might know that I'm always right in the middle. So mine's always set at the 0 position. But I get them back from Emily, suddenly I can't focus anymore. It's just because she messed around with my diopter focus, right? So I might check that and notice, oh yes, it's 2 ticks to the right. I know now that mine's 0 because I've already been through that alignment process, and I can just put mine back to 0 and I should be good to go. So your setting really should be your setting for a long time until your prescription changes again. And again, that's a kind of set it and forget it thing. Now, I will say a lot of people that will accidentally get jostled around, and they'll come in thinking their binoculars are broken and require alignment or collimation, which is very expensive. The first thing we check is that diopter focus, because sometimes they just, they've used those binoculars for so long, they haven't changed the diopter, but somehow it got jostled around, and that can be a really quick and free fix. So before you call Lancy and Sky, you can check your diopter focus. If you can't quite get to focus, just mess around with that diopter a little and see if that doesn't correct it.
And I think that's also an important tip for any of our listeners who do youth education, because one of the things we see a lot of times with our kids is, any moving parts are kind of fun to play with. So a lot of times we'll get our kids with their inner pupil distance correct, or sorry, inner pupillary distance.
That's all right.
But then they are there in the field and they go, or they've got the knob and they're just fidgeting with it back and forth. And so those are very common problems, I feel like, when we've been doing education, both for youth and adults. Because again, if you don't know what that knob is, you might not know to adjust it, and that it can actually make a really big difference. I like that yours locks in. I wish all
That
the
was
kids could
super
do that.
cool.
You just lock them and they wouldn't go anywhere. But yeah, that's I think thanks for sharing that.
It might be worth noting that there's one kind of binocular, and it's usually a poro prism, that style that we were showing, the Emily's larger set, design in a 7x50, and those are used by mariners. People out on ships and boats, ship's captains use them. Lots of folks in our armed services use them. And those can actually have an option where you focus each barrel independently. So if you have a pair like that and you're having a tough time figuring out how those work, you can just Google how to use a marine binocular, and it's a little different because the two barrels focus independently. Not the greatest choice for wildlife viewing for that reason. But if it's what you've got, it's what you've got, and it's better than not having a binocular. But it's just a little bit of an extra step to learn how those work.
Okay, I thought of one more question before Emily gets to go again. This was something that came up at our Learn to Bird that I know I have a personal preference on, but a lot of times when you buy a pair of binoculars, they come with a neck strap. But then I know people see, so I personally on mine got what's called a harness, where I've got the thing in the back and it kind of distributes the weight differently. I know it's a fairly minor thing because it's not super expensive to switch to something like a harness, but Marcie, can you share a little bit about those different types of how you hold your binoculars, how you're going to carry them around in the field with you?
Yes, and so most binoculars like these will just come with a general strap, and most folks do wear that around their neck. I don't know about you guys, I just hate that weight around my neck. I absolutely can't stand it. So there's a few workarounds if, like me, you're uncomfortable with this. The first is simply getting a strap that's long enough that you can wear it across, like a crossbody bag. So now you've, distributed the weight a little bit. But even better than that is what Maureen referred to, and that's called a Bino harness. The Bino harness works like a backpack in reverse. So it distributes the weight across both shoulders rather than the back of your neck, which can be much more comfortable in the long haul. It also keeps the binocular a little bit more snug against your body, so you don't have that bouncing kind of thing. If you are on a long hike, that can be a little bit bothersome, and not particularly great for the binoculars either to be bouncing around like that. So it can hold it a little more snugly and comfortably to the shoulders and back of the neck. Those are really inexpensive. You can get one for $20, $25. So that can be a really easy workaround to that whole strap on the back of the neck situation, which can be challenging. If you have a small enough pair of binoculars, there's also wrist straps and other kinds of lanyards and things available for those, so that you can really get something that works for you in your particular situation.
That wrist strap sounds like it would be very easy to damage your binoculars with, though.
Yeah, I think it's for people that really just hold their binoculars. And I often find myself not using the strap, which is not the safest way to go, right? So I'm really just holding them like this out in the field all the time, or like this. If I have the wrist strap on, at least if I fall, right, or drop them, they're not going to hit the ground. You're right, it would have to be for a really lightweight pair.
I like the satchel model. I just do the one shoulder strap.
Well, and it's an important point too for what are you doing with them, because if you have backyard bird feeders and you only sit at your kitchen table and watch birds, which is a totally awesome way to bird, then you might not need a strap at all, or just a wrist strap, or you don't, it doesn't matter. But yeah, if you're going on a long hike to see the Kalima warbler that Emily is so excited about, then the harness may be the way to go. So
yes, I'm so excited about the 4 a.m. hike time. Because of the time change, this is the first Cup Chat that I've actually been on time for. In retrospect, I was early. I was ready at like 7.
You were on before I was. I was impressed.
It's usually not that way, guys, because I'm not running. Well, Marcie, it has been wonderful to have you. And thank you for joining us. We were going to dive into a little bit of scopage, but I think this is a great opportunity to kind of wrap it up and just make you have to come back.
Yeah,
to talk about scopes.
You'll have to come back to talk about scopes.
So
can't wait to come back and talk about spotting scopes. Thank you so much, Maureen, Emily. This was awesome. What a great way to start the day.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And so, Marcie, I do sometimes go a little crazy. And last time I went a little crazy and gave away a Birding the Border pass for our Birding the Border program coming up this April. And so, Maureen, I do need you to pick a number between 1 and 4 so I can pick our winner off of our Facebook who commented with their the county or state that they're joining from. And Marcie, you know, I think I'll go a little crazy today too. And if you've watched this video till the end and have commented on Facebook with your county, if you're in Texas, comment with the county you're joining us from, or if you're out of state, let us know what state you are joining us from. If you comment with your binocular number, so whatever type of binocular numbers you use and your city or state, I will enter you into winning a Birding the Border t-shirt, which you will get in April, but I will give that away today and go a little crazy. So, oh, thank you, Miss Erin Wright, for commenting already. And yes, binocularing is a new word that I have invented here on Cup Chat. So, Maureen, 1 and 4.
Okay, 1 and 4, random number. We have got 4.
4. Well, wonderful. I will pass that along to our winner and send you, let you know how to register. But thank you so much, Marcie, for joining us. We're super excited, and you just now have to come back to talk about scopes. And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful Wednesday morning. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.